as you can see by my carving scraps here, I've been faceting on this for a while. And because it's leather hard, the cuts are going pretty smoothly, but I do end up with some of these rough edges. And so there's a number of ways you can deal with the rough edges. As they dry a little bit, you can knock them off. I personally am a big fan of rubber tip tools. So I sometimes like to get in and clean up the carved lines with those rubber tips. And I can use the same rubber tip on the edges. I've just got it at a bit of an angle. Periodically, I need to make sure to clean it off. You can also use your carving tools. So you can come back through and do essentially get the surface off. Do be careful, excuse me. Do be careful to clean off your carving tool as you go, because those little edges, you don't want to push them back into the clay. Depending on your angle, a rib may work. So the issue is we kind of want to brush them off. We don't really want to push them back in. And so the rubber, depending on the angle that you have your rib, whether it's the metal or the plastic rib that you have, you can scrape those off, or they end up kind of squishing back into the clay. I don't always recommend a brush, but if the clay is dry enough, a stiff brush, which I moved, I guess. A stiff, clean brush can be helpful as well, because that can kind of knock those pieces off. The brush you have has a stiffer bristles, and if it's clean, if it's dry, it can work pretty well to do kind of the first round of this stuff. Now, if you switch to a wet brush, you're going to see that that is a good tool for some cleanup a little bit later. So I sometimes come back through on both interiors and on surfaces with a wet brush. And this is just, clay water or fresh water that after you do it a while gets all clayey. And those can help you kind of get a smooth surface. Probably don't recommend them here because they're going to kind of cause those little scridgies sometimes to stick. Although if you work hard enough, like if you keep going after it and you keep going up and down kind of strokes, that can work. You can kind of make some progress that way. So a whole bunch of different ways I might go after cleaning up these edges. I'm going to do that for a while, and then the last thing I'm going to do before I'm done with this is I want to check my wall thicknesses. So here my wall is pretty thick. It's as thick as this level here, which I left so you could see. And that's probably fine over here where it's indented, right? It's thick, but it's got more surface area, so it's going to dry faster. If I get too much thinner, I start to run into risking these inside, the deeper cuts actually cracking or breaking through. Here, though, I probably do want to take off some thickness. This is borderline, it's thinner than a thumb. It's probably not going to crack, but it's just extra weight that doesn't necessarily have to be there. So I may keep working on that a little. I did also add a little bit of clay. I don't know if you remember, but when I was hollowing this section out, I cut a little too far into right behind here. So I added some wet clay back here and smoothed it in place. I can actually reach up into that space now just because of how I hollowed it out.